Man, James Harden just hurt you one way or another, doesn't he? Look, here's the thing. We all know what James Harden is capable of. There's nothing new under the sun that we haven't seen him do. But we've also seen this on repeat as well. One way or the other, he is bad for your team in the playoffs. When he was in Oklahoma City and he was with Houston, he was a turnover nightmare. In fact, he reset the turnover record. What was it, his MVP season, if I remember correctly? The year that Kawhi should have got it. And everybody looked at me and said, oh, no. Kawhi shouldn't be it. And I said, look, you take away Kawhi Leonard from San Antonio, that's not the same basketball team. He got injured against Golden State when they were ahead big in that game, by the way. He went down, and they lost that game and the series, period. He hurt you one way or the other. In Philly, he was hit and miss in the playoffs. He would hit a game buzzer, then he would have a mediocre game. In Brooklyn, he just was out of sync with his guys. And now here he is with the Clippers, and he's got Kawhi Leonard. He's had Kevin Durant. He's had Kawhi Leonard. He's had Russell Westbrook. He's had CP3. When is he going to emerge? I think the word is never. I would be so tired of waiting for James Harden to come around if I was an NBA team. If I'm an NBA team and I sign James Harden, I'm putting stock into what he does in the regular season. People are going to say, what's your problem? He had a pretty good game. Look what he did in OT, yada, yada, yada. Okay, but he had 3 fouls in the second quarter. He got his 4th foul with, 9 minutes to go in the fourth quarter? Questionable call, but he'd already had it by then. And he wouldn't have been in that position to begin with. Well, why is that such a big deal? A, he's not available. B, on defense, he's just not going to be able to be the same that he was to start the basketball game. When they had the lead, the whole team was playing really great defense. Without James Harden in, the team began to sputter. Well, doesn't that tell you how much they need James Harden? Look, if he's not there, he's a non-factor in the first place. One way or the other, he hurts you, whether he gets lazy on defense, he starts taking bad shots on offense, he gets selfish, whatever the case may be, eventually James Harden beats your team for you. That's all there is to it. I don't know if he's ever going to get a ring unless he's on the bench somewhere, some superstar squad that, he's got really nothing to do with. I think that's, at this point, that's what the beard is going to do. I think everybody was so gung-ho on him and Steph Curry when those guys first entered the league and the way that they were hitting threes and the ball handling skills and all that, the step back and, those things that we see that James Harden can do. You get so enthralled in it that you get lost in the many flaws that this dude has once it's showtime in the playoffs. I said when he was in Philly that was probably some of the best basketball initially in the playoffs that I'd ever seen him play. But eventually he became James Harden all over again. I'm not taking away anything from Denver because of what they accomplished in that game. That was a hell of a comeback. And you don't just lay down in front of Jokic. And I'm not saying that Denver didn't do what they needed to do in order to win in that basketball game. What I am saying is that sometimes you can point. And look, here's the thing. With every roster that James Harden has been on, he's the common denominator. We all know that one person that complains about every relationship they've ever been in. And eventually one day we wake up and you go, you're the common denominator in all these relationships and you're still single. They're often getting married. They're often successful relationships. They're healing emotionally very quickly. Like they're moving on from this really fast. Maybe the problem isn't everybody else, Broham. Maybe the problem, look, does anybody remember when he attributed his career at one point to breaking it off with a Jenner, Kardashian? Remember that whole thing? He's like, that's part of the reason why I've been successful. Sure, if we count regular season success, absolutely James Harden has been successful. If we want to think about what somebody's done in the postseason, I think that we would very easily be able to label James Harden as a failed superstar. one way or the other, he lets you down. When you need him, he can't get it done. And it's unfortunate because we see, again, everything that he's capable of. Are you going to give credit to Denver? Absolutely, I am. Because at the end of the day, they took advantage of every time Kawhi Leonard wasn't in and getting a little bit of rest. They took advantage of James Harden because they were going right after him and they were making him play off. They started to scheme what they wanted to do, and they got outcoached in that basketball game, specifically with how Denver handled when they were resting Jokic, when they were resting this guy, when they were putting other guys in, the way that they matched up everybody against Denver. And, the end of the second half, when things got really out of control, and, Harden was not doing what he needed to do, and he couldn't be in there, they took full advantage of that. If you want to equate it to something, look, it's just like a power play in hockey. Sure, in basketball, you've got an even amount of players, but at the end of the day, we all know that there's really only a few really, truly great superstars in the league, and Harden would be considered by that by many people. Me, I would put Harden in the category of really good, maybe even exceptional, but I don't know that I put him in the category of all-time great. He does a lot of cool stuff, maybe legend. He has a lot of cool moves. I'm sure one day when he retires, people are going to look at his highlight reel and go, first ballot Hall of Famer. Me personally, I'm not going to do that. I don't think I'm ever going to look at James Harden and go, first ballot Hall of Famer. Maybe 20 or 30 years down the road, maybe. I don't know, somebody's going to say, well, come on, man, Carmelo's getting, well, look, Carmelo Anthony is also a champion. He's in the Basketball Hall of Fame because he's a collegiate champion, because he's an Olympic champion, because for the longest time he led the Olympics in scoring of, all time. Still to this day, Syracuse hasn't got a title without him. He carried the Knicks. I don't give a damn what anybody says. Maybe the purest shot in the history of basketball. At the end of the day, we're going to look back at Harden's career, I think, at least we should, and go, man, this guy had endless talent around him, and he could not get it done. Pick a reason. Any one of them. I'm just saying. All right, obviously, Indianapolis blowout game. Look, I don't think that happens twice, if I'm being honest with you. I'm skeptical even as to whether or not the series ends up in their favor. I'm still 50-50, to be honest with you. Hell of a showing. Don't get me wrong. And Pascal really showed his playoff experience, but the percentage level at which they shot the basketball, just feeling it, man. That's literally what that amounted to. They were just feeling it. And at the end of the day, one team played really well, and Milwaukee just didn't play up to snuff. Now, you could say it was Giannis all by himself, but let's be honest and blame this exactly where it is due if things go this way for the Bucks that it has over the last couple of seasons, and that is they made drastic coaching changes for no good reason whatsoever. At least none that we are really truly made aware of. There's rumors, there's hearsay, there's speculation, but we don't have anything concrete. And the reality is, if we want to blame somebody predicated upon what we know or what we've heard, we could potentially blame Giannis and say, look, they're putting way too much stock into their superstar. And I'm not saying that franchises shouldn't do this. What I am saying is, if it's true and the complaint is, look, these coaches are being too hard on guys, well, if they're winning, then what's the problem? There shouldn't be an issue. You let go of 2 winning coaches to get to the point that you are now. That kind of tells me that you went and you got somebody that is just going to be a pushover, a yes man, a simp, somebody that's really not going to rattle the cages. And look, I'm not saying that you got to be crazy, but what little we know, it was working. Like, okay, this is your problem. Why is it working? You're sitting here and complaining about winning is what I'm hearing. You got blown out like this in the playoffs. Are we going to fire the basketball coach now? If they end up losing this series, is this coach gone? That's what I want to know, because you've already messed up twice. Now you got to eat crow on your salary cap. Man, I'm telling you, this is Milwaukee's problem. Now, do I think this happens again? No. Do I think they could win the series? Look, man, Pascal looked really different. I think, though, what it's going to take is just a little bit better on defense. And even then, there were some plays where it was like, look, what more can you do defensively? They were just in a zone. The whole team was, and it's not something that's going to happen every single night. Here in a couple of more nights, we're going to look back on that performance and we're going to think one of two things. Either, man, that was a real good fluke, or it's just their series. Regardless, even after that loss, I think Milwaukee has some decisions that they got to make next season. Because looking at that game, there's no chance in hell they go to the NBA Finals. If they make the NBA Finals, then the East was weak to begin with. I'm just keeping it a buck. So what I would do right now if I'm Milwaukee to fix this thing, I'm going to a collegiate style of defense. I'm running a 2-3 zone. I'm running a 1-3-1. I'm doing something like that. Because offensively, I don't know if I've got enough firepower to stick with Indianapolis at this point. I don't know if I'm going to be able to compete with the Pacers. If I bear down defensively and I go 2-1-2 high traps, if I set zone plays and keep them on the outside, if I force them to be able to, or not have the ability to run up and down the court, and I out-rebound, and I have my guys in a better position to do that, and I slow the game's pace down, then I think I can win. But if I allow this up and down stuff like I did tonight, then I'm cooked. I mean, that's all there is to that. I like presenting the solution. I came up with the problem. Now I'm presenting a solution. And by the way, the solution at the end of this season, really regardless of how it ends, is you fire the coach. Because that's embarrassing. You know, and the Bucks, I mean, they're going to do one of two things from here. They're either just going to lay down and take it, or they're going to, rise up. But I think it's going to be a player thing more than it's going to be a coaching thing if I'm keeping it a buck. No pun intended. All right, everybody, I am Drew Duncan. Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram is all at Drew Duncan Radio. Or wherever you listen to the podcast, tell your device to play the Drew Duncan Sports Show. Everybody stay safe. Have a wonderful rest of your night and or day.